Welcome to Module 4. In this video, we're going to discuss cold calling. Specifically, we're going to go into tips that you could use to cold call effectively. We're going to answer questions regarding if you should outsource your cold calling efforts and what to expect from cold calling. Now, before I get started, I just wanted to recap some of the things that we learned in our previous videos. So in video 1, I walked you through how to set up a website. I showed you where to go to register a domain name, how to choose a hosting plan, and what website builder you should use to get a website online fast. In video 2, we talked about how to drive traffic to your website by running YouTube video ads. We also discussed in length how to set up your Google Ads account so that you could start using Google Ads to promote your video on YouTube. And in video 3, we talked about cold emailing. I provided you with strategies for cold emailing that you could use to basically use cold emailing as another marketing channel for your business. And in video module 4, we're going to discuss cold calling. So what is cold calling? Cold calling is essentially, as it sounds, it's making a phone call to somebody unsolicited. Now, if you've been around on this earth for any length of time, you know from experience that cold calling often has a bad rap, specifically because you probably have parents or grandparents who got calls from telemarketers back in the day insistently, and they said, we hate those telemarketers, and slammed the phone down on them whenever they got the call, from those people. And that's sad, because back in the day, phone salespeople gave the business of phone sales a bad name. But the reality is that cold calling is not a bad thing. It actually can be a good thing if you take the consultant approach to cold calling and really try to help people instead of just sell, and harass them. So, the key is doing cold calling effectively. But before you actually can start cold calling, you want to make sure that you actually make the effort to sit down and actually work to do the cold calling. My favorite motto is butt plus chair equals success. And that means that you actually have to make the effort to sit down and do it. Now, that may seem simple, but the reality is that many people, they postpone, they push back cold calling, and they just don't do it because they're either afraid of the phone, they're afraid to get on the phone, they think that people are going to yell at them, and they just don't want to take that potential negativity. And cold calling is all about sales. You have to be willing to make at least 10 phone calls where people tell you no until you get to somebody who says yes. You got to work past the phone fear and just actually sit down and do it. So, you may not have done phone sales before, but you have to make yourself do it. You have to sit down and tell yourself that you're actually going to make it happen, regardless of whatever negative mindset that you may have towards making sales calls or not. Now, if you've done phone sales before, then it's going to be fairly simple for you to get back into it. But I mean, if you've not sold before in the past, then it's something that you're just going to have to make yourself do it, and just be prepared to have people tell you no. You may even hear some negative words on the phone, but you just have to push past it and be willing to keep on calling, and as they say, smiling and dialing until you get to the right person who's interested in selling their property to you, or just who is interested in talking about it, because having that conversation is key. Now, one tool that I use to always cold call is Google Calendar, because with Google Calendar I could set up reminders, I could create a schedule to cold call. That way I could just itemize my time and know that every day between a certain hour I'm going to schedule these, or a certain part of the day I'm going to schedule at least 1 hour to making my cold calls. And since I've been in phone sales for quite a while, I know that I can make a certain amount of calls per hour and use my time effectively, but I have to schedule it. And thankfully I work in an office so that I could call quietly without interruption, because I do have children, probably just like you, and I do have responsibilities like you as well. But having the ability to close the door gives me the ability to make the calls. So, and you may not have that luxury. You may have a busy life. You may be working full time. You may be going to school, work, and then you're wanting to build a wholesaling business. And I get that. You're not alone. But the thing is that you have to schedule the time to make the cold calls, or else it's not going to happen. So you need to think about where can you get that time in your day to make those cold calls. If you're working full time, you want to be able to set aside 10 to 15 minutes here or there throughout the day to make the calls. For example, let's say that you have a lunch break for an hour per day. You could use 15 minutes out of that hour to make your cold calls. If you drive to work and you have a vehicle, go out to your vehicle at lunch, sit down for those 15 minutes and make your calls. Just make sure that you keep things organized. Have a tablet or a laptop with you so that you can easily boot it up and make your calls in your car before you go back to work. So I've done it. I know that it works, and I know that you could do it too, but you actually have to be prepared and you have to have the right tools with you to make the calls. So, work past that phone fear, work past the procrastination, and start thinking about all the different times in your day where you could start making those cold calls, because it is something that will be effective if you actually do it. And another thing is that when you make those calls, you want to tell people that you've been trying to reach them, because with cold calling, you want to incorporate cold calling in your other marketing efforts. You want to be doing you want to be driving traffic to your website. You want to be emailing them, and you also want to be sending them direct mail. And so, in your cold call, you want to tell people that you've been trying to reach them. Hey, I sent you a postcard last week. I want to make sure that I just wanted to check back that you received it. Or if you send them a text message, you want to say, hey, I sent you a text message last week. I wanted to check back to see if you had the chance to look that over. Because if you tell people that you're trying to reach them, you reference that and tell them, hey, I'm trying to reach you. Then when they get your cold call and they hear the message, the voicemail, they're going to say, oh yeah, that's right. That guy's been trying to reach me, and I should give him a call back. That's why you want to reference that you tried to reach them in your actual cold call voicemail message to them. So let's talk about how you actually do cold calling. Now, if you've not done phone sales before, the most important thing that you need to have set up is an actual script. A script is basically the pitch. It's what you're going to say on the phone. If you've not been provided with a script yet, I'm going to include this example script, along with this course, that you could download it and use for your cold calling efforts. So scripts are really easy. There's also tons of scripts online that you could use. You could download for making the cold calling for wholesaling deals. I'd recommend starting with this script because this one's really simple and really easy to use. And you could use this script for any type of cold calling that you want, that you're trying to do. If you're planning on targeting a specific property, if you're searching for a target property, and it also provides you with additional tools. If the prospect is interested in talking more, if the prospect says no, having a script like this is important initially. You want to have it right in front of you so that, if the prospect says no, if they say, what's your offer, things like that, you want to have that script in front of you, because it's like your blueprint, if you will, so that you know what to say and how to say it. Now, if you have a little bit of phone fear and you're just hesitant to get on the phone because you don't know what to say yet, then what I would do is I would get your script like the one that we're looking at right now, print it out, and start memorizing it. Start getting the flow of the script down. Start getting the talking points down so that you feel comfortable talking about them. And then, if you have a spouse, a partner, or maybe a friend, just role play with them. They could be the homeowner, and you could do a mock cold call to them where you sit across the table from them, or maybe you call them on your cell and you just read from the script and basically go over the different points in the script where they could be the homeowner. They could say, I'm interested. Maybe they could say some negative feedback to you so that you know how to respond, and maybe just do a couple of those calls first before you actually hop on the phone and start knocking out your cold calls. So I would have a cold calling script in front of you at all times, at least for the first couple of months, while you get your feet wet, so that you always know what to say and when to say it while you're making your cold calls. So because scripts are invaluable, but I could tell you from experience that the more calls that you make, you're going to start memorizing this. You're going to get the pitch down, and it's going to be comfortable for you, so that if they say yes or no, or if they ask you questions, you're going to know exactly what to say and how to say it and when to say it. So I would have the script in front of you, and also you want to make sure that you have a notepad next to you as well. So if the homeowner is asking questions, if they're providing, asking you questions that you generally don't have answers for, then you just want to be writing their questions down so that you can either research the questions online or maybe reach out to a mentor and ask them for assistance with getting answers to those questions, because you want to be knowledgeable. The last thing that you want to do is act like you're knowledgeable, but then not really be knowledgeable. There's plenty of people like that out there where they act like they know what they're talking about, but in reality they're absolutely clueless. They're providing crap information, and they're not helping the homeowner as well. And you want to be the consultant. You want to offer them valuable information, that as much as you can, that offers value to what they're looking for, instead of just being another cold caller, another salesperson who's going to mess them over and further cement that negative image of cold callers in their mind and heart when the next person calls them. Now to the question of, should you outsource your cold calling efforts? This is a tough one because in the business world today, because of Tim Ferriss, who released the wonderful book, The 4-Hour Work Week, a few years ago, there's a huge mentality towards outsourcing everything. And outsourcing is fun and it's great, but what if you don't have the budget to outsource a task like cold calling? It's possible that you're just getting started with wholesaling, and and if that's the case, you're not going to have the budget to outsource cold calling and hire someone in the Philippines to do it for you, even though there are a lot of outsourcers out there that are highly qualified, and they do cold calling, they do lead management, and starting salary $2 an hour. I mean, come on, that's an awesome rate to pay somebody. But I mean, if you can't afford to pay them $2.25 an hour for for 4 or 5 hours a day, don't do it. You have to make sure that you set your budget correctly when you're getting your business started, especially if you're just getting started with wholesaling. And if you don't have the budget to put towards paying a cold caller right now, don't do it. But even when you do decide to hire a cold caller, you want to make sure that you work with a company where you can actually track the work that they're doing. You want to make sure that you have a phone system that they can log into and they can dial from, so that you can actually see that they're making calls every day. Because if the cold caller says, that, hey, I'm making 35, 50 calls a day, but you're not getting results, then you're wasting money. You have to have the ability to track the work that they're doing and actually verify that they're making cold calls. Because if you can't verify that, then you're just wasting time and you're wasting valuable money. So, if you do eventually decide to hire a cold caller, especially somebody in the Philippines, which is where a lot of the excellent VAs are from, you want to make sure that you have a phone system that they can log into that gives you the ability to track their work, so you can verify what exactly they're doing, because you don't want to keep throwing money away without getting results. And most importantly, you want to make sure that you're getting good quality leads, because the quality of the leads is what's going to produce the best results from you. You don't want to go with a skip tracer. You want to go with an actual data provider. And there's plenty of data companies out there. One of the best data companies that I personally work with is a company called nattymark.com. If you haven't purchased leads yet, go to nattymark, check out their website, and see what they can offer you, because they do have excellent data here that you can use to get started with marketing your wholesaling business, connecting with homeowners. Pretty much it's as easy as just telling them, okay, I want to target this zip code, and provide them with other metrics for what you're looking for, and they could plug in all that into their computer, and they could give you a list based upon the data that you offer them. So in a nutshell, cold calling, yes, you definitely want to incorporate that into your schedule. You've got to make time for it, and most importantly, you have to work past the fear of having people tell you no, because that is often one of the most common reasons why people don't make sales calls and they don't cold call, is because they don't want to hear the word no. They don't like people saying, I'm not interested. They just don't do it. So as long as you work past those negative thoughts, you schedule the time and you actually do it, you're going to see success with cold calling. So use the script that I'm going to add to the course. And if you don't like that script, then what you could do is just research other scripts online. There's tons of other scripts that you can use for cold calling. And most importantly, as you do more cold calling over time, you want to create a script that sounds more natural to you. So, if you start out with this script, but you're thinking, it just doesn't sound like me, then take the time to get a notepad and just write out a sample script for what you would say. Because, you want the words to flow, you want to feel comfortable when you're saying it, and you want people to think that it sounds more authentic and more like you instead of just a scripted performance, because, once you start getting in the flow of cold calling down, you're going to have to be able to stop, to get off that script and to have chit chat, banter back and forth between the person that you're calling. If you call Mr. Jones and Mr. Jones tells you, on the last call, on your last call to him, if he told you, my birthday's coming up, I'm going to be turning, 65, then you want to write that down. You want to write that down somewhere, put it into a calendar, so that when you call him back, you want to say, hey, Mr. Jones, it's Bob, from XYZ Homes. Hey, how was your birthday? And then you just want to wait and let him talk about his birthday so that he feels more like he's talking to a friend instead of a pushy salesperson. Because if you begin to remember those details, then they're going to be more open to taking your call, especially if they tell you that they're not interested in selling right now, but maybe down the road. You want to develop that relationship with them. Like, for example, if you talk with Mrs. Smith and she says, that she'd been thinking about selling her property, but, maybe she's going on vacation to, let's say France, and she's going to be gone for 3 weeks. Then what you should do is, just get a quick card, mail it to her and say, hey, congratulations on your journey. Best wishes. Have a wonderful time. That way she'll see that postcard when it comes in. And then when you call her again, when she's back from her trip, she'll be more open to talk to you because you took the time to send her that postcard, and she'll want to take your call, especially if you're willing to spend a couple of minutes on the call having her talk about her trip. You want to say, you want to ask her questions. What did you see? Where did you go? How was the trip? Oh, by the way, have you thought more about selling your home? I can make the process as pain-free as possible. I could promise you a cash offer and a quick closing in as little as 1 month. If you're interested in that, we could start the process this week. Just let me know and I could swing by. So that's kind of how cold calling works. Is you have to have a script, but you also have to be willing to go off that script, and have an actual conversation with people. Because if you call somebody and you say, yes, my name's John with XYZ Homes, I want to see if you're interested in selling your property, but then you don't deviate from the script and you sound more like a robot, then you're just going to have people hanging up on you all day. But you want to call them, you want to sound, just like, like you're a friend, somebody who they want to talk to. And most importantly, if you take the time to talk with them, they're going to expect your call and they're going to know who you are and be open to talking with you. I have a lot of experience in sales. I've had people tell me before that I sounded just like I was their friend when I called them, and that puts a person's guard down, because people, by nature, they hate talking to salespeople, regardless if you're a telemarketer or a real estate wholesaler. So if you start taking the steps, in the very beginning with cold calling, to have a more conversational approach with people, to be more personable, to remember details, and also to incorporate other marketing efforts in your outreach to them, they're going to be more open to talking with you. And most importantly, maybe it might take 3 or 4 calls, to them until they finally say, Mr. Smith says, you know what, me and Mrs. Smith were talking, and yeah, I think we're ready to sell our property to you. So you have to be willing to be consistent with it. If Mr. Smith on call number 1 says, I've thought about selling my property in the past, but I'm not sure that I'm ready right now. Call me back in 90 days. Then, you want to do what's called putting that lead into a pipeline. You want to get yourself what's called a CRM. It's used for contact management. There's lots of free CRMs that are out there. One of the best one is a program called Zoho. It's a program that I personally use for my contact management. It's free to get started. Zoho is really easy to set up because you can easily input the lead into the CRM. You could put the person's first name, last name, their street address, their phone number, city, state, and zip, and then you could even schedule a reminder within Zoho on when to call that person back, so that Zoho helps to keep the leads organized and on track, so that you know when to call people back, when to send them another email, maybe when to send them another piece of direct mail, etc. You can also use Google Calendar for that, but I recommend Zoho because you want to have your pipeline and your lead flow all in one place, because it's going to help you to keep things more organized and on track, with your cold calling efforts. So, and just stay consistent, and and don't give up on it. Remember that sometimes people, it may take 4 or 5 calls before you actually move forward with them, but as long as you build the pipeline up and you start putting those people into the quote unquote pipeline, if they say call me back in 3 months, then you want to call them back in 3 months. Because in the past, I've had sales before where I've had to follow up with people for about a year until they were actually ready to move forward, with doing a deal with me. So now that's not going to be the same way for everybody with you. You may be able to get someone to do a deal with you on the first call or the second call, but you have to be willing to be persistent. You have to be wanting to keep following up with them, keep making those calls, and most importantly, be personable. Take the consultant approach, write the details down, and remember those details when you call them, because that's going to lead to greater success with cold calling. So I hope I provided you with enough ammo, in this video to get you started with cold calling. It's definitely something that's effective, and you can do it well if you actually start doing it. Now, also when it comes to results, you may be wondering, okay, what kind of results can I expect from this? So I'm not going to lie to you, cold calling can be rather difficult. You're not always going to get 1 lead per day. You may not, that's probably not going to happen. What you have to be willing to do for the first couple of weeks is make the calls, talk with people, and start building up your pipeline, because it's all about the pipeline. Because once you start putting people who are interested into your feedback calendar and into your follow-up calendars, then each time that you call them back, that lead's going to be more closer to saying yes, more closer to wanting to sell their property to you. So, you have to get away from the mentality of, if I call for an hour a day, I'm going to get, between 1 and 5 leads, because that's just not going to happen. You have to be willing to look at this as part of a business building, a business building step for your business. You have to be willing to make the calls, be willing to talk with people, and be willing to have people tell you, we're not interested in selling now, but we're going to be doing it in 2 months, 3 months, etc. And you have to be willing to make those calls back, because the more people that you put into your pipeline, then you're going to get to those days. You're definitely going to have the days where maybe you'll talk with 2 to 3 people a day, and they're going to say, "Yep, we're thinking of selling. We're ready. Send us an offer." And then that's what's going to help lead to the fast growth of your business. It may take a couple of months to get there, but eventually you'll start having more people in your pipeline that are ready to make the decision, because you've been persistent with it, and you've kept putting those leads into the pipeline, and you kept following up with them. So I hope that answers any questions that you have regarding expectations about cold calling. So thanks again for watching this video and for your business. I appreciate you purchasing this course, and let's move on to module number 4.